go to the human population chart. Let's begin to look at some of the physical evidences of things that are happening around us that point us probably to about a 6,000-year-old Earth. Human population in 1985 was guessed to be about 5 billion people. Today it's up right around 6.5 billion people, probably give or take a few million somewhere inside of there. Back in the 1900s, it was down about 1 billion people. Back at the birth of Christ, we had about a quarter of a billion people. Mathematicians have done the math. All of you that have ever been involved in pyramid type businesses will understand exactly what I'm saying here. Okay, one person gets 6 people into the business. Those 6 people get 6 people underneath them. You now have 42 people in your business. Those people all gather 6 more, and it escalates out in a large pyramid. This is precisely what has happened since the days of Noah in the flood. They calculated forwards, and then they turned around and recalculated going backwards. 8 people, 4,400 years ago, averaging about 4 kids per family. Now we looked at that senator in Arkansas last week, had 15 kids. He took care of a couple of families that don't have any kids. But they calculated averaging out about 4 people per family. The population from 8 people 4,400 years ago would be 6.5 billion people today. They calculated it backwards. One came back to where if the population was the way it would be today, averaging 4, it would come out to about 4,400 years ago. Well, we know for a fact the flood happened about 1,600 years after God created the heavens and the earth. Which now, if you do the population growth, it begins to look at the fact that we are about 6,000 years old. We are not millions of years old, the way they want you to believe. But there's been people out there who say this world is very overcrowded. Well, let's take a look and see if these folks have got anything to base their facts on. Is the world truly overcrowded? Let's take a look at Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, Florida, folks, is about 25 billion square feet. We have 6.5 billion people in the world today, which means you can fit the entire population of the entire world in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, you only have about 4 square feet per person. That would be overcrowded. Okay? But I want you to hear, folks, we are not overcrowded. Don't let anybody tell you. Look at the vast lands of open areas livable by mankind. Beautiful fields of flowers that you can build houses on. We got a real simple thing. If it's overcrowded where you are, then move. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room to go. This world is not overcrowded. If the world were, same mathematical equations, if the world were millions of years old, like I say, when man came on the face of the earth, about 3.4 million years ago, and 4 people per family, today, folks, it would be escalated off the charts. In fact, using the same numbers, there would be 150,000 people per square inch on the face of the earth. That would be overcrowded. Okay? That would be very much so overcrowded. The fact is, human population growth tells us this earth is not millions of years old. But God told him in the beginning. God blessed him, said, be fruitful, replenish, fill the earth. God told Adam and Eve, have lots of kids. There's plenty of room. There's plenty to eat. I've given it all to you. Fill up the earth, folks. Notice he didn't say a part of the earth. This is a neat thing to notice about this verse. Today, what is about 1/3 of the earth is land, 2/3 is water. Notice he said, fill up the earth. The whole earth. The water you see today, and we'll get into this more next week and the week after, was not here in the beginning. God said, fill up the earth. Have lots of kids. Thus saith the Lord who created the heavens. God himself formed the earth. He said it not in vain. He said he formed it to be inhabited. God formed the entire earth to be inhabited by mankind. And made everything for us. But we have people out here, you'll probably recognize this man here, Jacques Cousteau. In order to stabilize the population of this earth, we must eliminate about 350,000 people per day. This is my question. Jacques, let me start with you. Okay? 350,000 people a day, he says we need to eliminate. A total population of 250 to 300 million people. A 95% decline from present levels would be ideal. Ted Turner from CNN made this comment. Folks, they're talking about knocking off 6 billion people to make this earth populated the way they want to have it. The NWO, y'all heard of the NWO? New Age theory? And that NWO is a New World Order. We're going to talk very much so about the New World Order. Don't miss it, folks, because that's going to get into your end time stuff. The New World Order says that we need to reduce the population to 500 million people. They're active today, very active in our world today. They go on. Bill Clinton, your former president, we spelled with a K for a simple reason. That's the way other nations of the world spell it. That's not misspelled by mistake. He says that we must either reduce the Earth's human population to 1 billion or reduce the standard of living to a peasant status. Your former president made this quote to the United Nations on a platform that we have got to get rid of some of these people. Christianity is our foe, said Peter Singer. This man here, professor at Princeton, favors killing babies up to 28 days old. Your kids, grandkids, you go to college at Princeton University instead of this man's teachings. Kill the babies up to 28 days old. He says it's our foe. We must destroy the Judeo-Christianity religious tradition in order to make animal rights succeed. This man puts the rights of an animal above our faith. The world has a cancer, and the cancer is man. This is the man from the Rockefeller Foundation that made this quote. We have Prince Philip. He made the comment, he said, if I can be reincarnated, I return to Earth as a killer virus to lower human population levels. Folks, you may not know it, but the world is looking, and they're saying we got to kill some of these people off. There's a real neat study. We're not going to be able to get into this class here, but if you want a real neat study, go out and study vaccines. It's a real interesting study to do about vaccinations. Where they came from and why they were brought in. Real neat study. Catherine, from the UN Food Distribution. She says that food is our power and we use it to control behavior. Did you know that the behavior of the world is being controlled by the food levels? And the UN says we've got the control because we are controlling the food. I wonder sometimes if the U.S. ain't being fattened up for the kill. Folks, there's plenty of food in this world. The problem is, it ain't going where it needs to go. And I think many times we need to help out where we can in that, for sure. The fact is, it's out there. This here is what they call the Georgia Guidestones. You can drive 5 hours east of here. They're still standing there. They're mounted in stone. The Indians call this the center of the universe. But this is what it has. It has the 10 Commandments of the New Age, which is your New World Order. The 10 Commandments are written. This is a picture of what the stones look like. You can see them on the road. That's about a 6-foot man standing next to them. They're very, very large. But in these stones, right here, you'll notice the 10 Commandments of the New World Order. Commandment number 1. Maintain humanity under 500 million people. 500 million people in perpetual balance with nature. Folks, the world is not overcrowded. Why are these organizations trying to make us believe we got to kill off a bunch of people? We're not overcrowded. Don't want to believe you, but these folks here want to reduce our population. Why? They're trying to reduce it down and to get rid of some of the population to set the world in order for the Antichrist. As you begin to look and study the things of the Antichrist and what's going to happen, things are going to be made for him in that time. The Jews started off with Hitler way back when. This is not part of my seminar, but let me just say this. Many men of past have tried to control population. And notice every time they tried to control population, they got rid of those who oppressed against them to set the people in order that would support them. And folks, in 2007, it's being done today. It's being done in a very different way. Be very, very careful when you hear these things. These stones here were still put up by the Masonic lodge there, and when we get a New World Order, we'll begin to see what some of these things about, how they fit into that. And I'll say this, if anybody here is part of the Masons, if anybody here has got family in the Masons, I know people get very offended when I talk about this, but you know, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the way it is. Be very careful with any organization you join, I don't care who it is. And folks, that even goes to the church today. If you're going to a church, if you're going to First Assembly of God right here, and you don't know what we believe or what we stand for, come and talk to somebody. You should know what your church even believes and where they stand on different areas. And what you'll find is some of the faiths that we're having out there now that are calling themselves Christian are actually not founded on the full Word of God. Folks, I'll tell you, thank God for what we got here for assembly. Okay, I do know what we believe here. I do know what's being preached here. And we do stand for one thing, we stand for the Word of God. We need to be thankful for that. Let's go on to stars. Population shows this world is not six millions of years old. Let's go into outer space. Let's take a look at supernovas. Astronomers have observed that about every 30 years one of these phenomena occurs. A star dies, it explodes, and voila, we have what is known as a supernova out there in space. Well, the interesting thing is, if the universe is billions of years old, we must ask the question, why are there less than 300 supernovas that we can observe? Millions of years old, every 30 years we got a supernova happening. Why are there not millions of these things out there in the universe somewhere? Interesting question. Textbooks say that red giant stars evolve into white dwarf stars over the course of billions of years it takes to do this. Is that true? Always ask the question, why? Always ask them. When people talk about millions of years, folks, teach your kids to ask this one question. Were you there? Because nobody was there. There are no records. There's no historical documents anywhere for this stuff. But anyway, red giant stars. They noticed back in the Egyptian hieroglyphs that Sirius was a red giant star. Now, this was back, those are the dates we've got written down here, 50 BC. We go on forward, the Seneca describes Sirius as being even redder than Mars. We find this interesting. Ptolemy listed Sirius as one of the 6 red stars in 150 AD. Now we have about a 2,000 year spread now, this star is still red. Okay? This is records that we have written that are showing it. Today, this is a white binary star. Only 2,000 years have passed. So why are they teaching us that it takes millions or billions of years for a red star to turn into a white dwarf star? When in fact we know what's happened in only 2,000 years. They're lying to us, they've lied to you to try to diminish our faith in the book of Genesis. We just got to throw this picture in, real pretty picture of our moon. We look at our moon when we look at the age of the Earth. The moon is roughly in that 239,000 mile area from Earth. There's an area inside the Earth around here. In this area right here, what they call the no moon zone. Moon don't go in there, or things catastrophic are going to happen on Earth. Okay? We call it the no moon zone. We notice here that the moon also, every year, is going away from us. Well, we all agree with me, if the moon is going away from us, at one time, it was closer to us. That to me is that's good logic. As we begin to look at this thing here, and how the moon actually formed, there's an interesting fact out there. If we'll go to the next slide right here, another pretty picture of the moon and the Earth. I like pictures of space. We'll just throw them in there for one thing. They got a thing called the inverse square law. The forces of attraction between any two objects is inversely proportionate to the square of the distance between them. I know a lot of you would say, what did you just say? This is real easy. Let me put it in my language, okay? Anytime two forces come together in the closer they get, they will inversely, proportionately get stronger in the attraction to one another. How many of y'all remember your wife the first time you dated her? Or back when you were dating? Remember when you would go home and you said, oh, I can't wait for tomorrow, I can't wait to see her again. You girls were home doing the same thing. I know everybody was doing this. So, but you notice as you jumped in the car and you drove to the house, as you got closer to one another, all of a sudden you get out of the car and you would see her. And it would all be the butterflies would be able to jump and how happy you got. And the closer you got to it, this is the inverse square law, folks, it works every time. As you got closer together, the attraction would get more and more and more as you came together. This is the idea of the inverse square law. The fact is, if the moon had gotten much closer to the Earth than what it is today, the tidal waves and the weather phenomena on the face of this Earth would not be able to withstand any form of life structure whatsoever. But if it's going farther away from us, it had to get closer to the Earth millions of years ago. And therefore, it cannot have happened. 6,000 years ago, we have no problems whatsoever. The moon could be where it is, the moon could be a little bit closer, would have no effect on us whatsoever. But we have one problem, we have one thing here that maybe these folks here would be able to help us out with, and this may be what would happen to dinosaurs. If the moon was that close together, 65 million years ago, maybe all of the dinosaurs got mooned to death. It was so close, when it rolled around, and maybe got rid of our dinosaurs that way. Let's take a look at short period comets. Short period comets are losing their matter, and they have a life expectancy of about 10,000 years. It's been observed, we look at it, we watch the comets, they dissolve, they lose particles, and we calculated it out. They say about 10,000 years of short-term comet. Well, if they're only 10,000 years life expectancy, and we're millions of years old, why are the comets still here? They should have been burned up by now. Well, in 1950, folks, Jan Orr came up with a proposal. Now stay with me, because this is good. Jan Orr came up, a Dutch astronomer, and he said, I have a theory. No, he had a dream. He had a proposal, which means he wished, he hoped, he prayed that maybe this was true, that a great spherical shell of comets existed at the frontiers of our solar system. Now this is what he said. He said that inside the sphere, all of the comets live. And every so often, a comet will, the sphere will get overfilled and it will burp out a comet. And the comet zzz, takes off into our solar system. And it fills up with comets again and whoop, burps out another one. And another comet is flying through our solar system. Well, Jan, where is the spherical cloud? Well, he told us where it was at. He said that the Oort cloud, of course named after him, who else would claim it? He said that the Oort cloud is about 50,000 astronomical units from the Earth. Okay, an astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. About 93 million miles. Okay, so this man said that 50,000 times 93 million miles is where his Oort cloud is sitting out there burping comets into our solar system. You see, folks, if I came up with an idea, I'm a scientist, I got PhDs hanging all over the wall, and I can write good stories. And I woke up one morning and said, I have a theory of where the stars are coming from. It's in a Webster cloud. And inside this Webster cloud, every now and then, it burps out a star. And through the course of millions of years, all the stars have been burped out of my cloud. How many of us would grab hold of this? People would first off... People would probably send me in for some form of drug testing or some form of what is wrong with this guy's mind. The fact is, papers are still being written today on this man's Oort cloud by scientists out there. But let's take a look, let's take this guy a little bit further. 93 million years, or 93 million miles, is one astronomical unit. He said 50,000. Here's a picture of our solar system. Pluto, my friends, is only 39 astronomical units away. Okay? Do not go to Walmart, buy a $39 telescope and expect to look at Pluto. It's not going to work. It can only be seen via high-powered telescopes. This man's cloud is 49,961 astronomical units past Pluto. Nobody has ever observed this cloud. When he put it so far out that people would believe that he knows this is a fact, the scientists would take hold of the fact, and now this is what they say. No one's ever seen the Oort cloud. It's hard to see even one astronomical unit from Earth. Very hard to see. Even things flying around the backside of the sun, we have problems seeing without, again, high-powered telescope. But he proposed that it stood out there, and this is what happened. Many scientific papers are still being written. Yet there's not one shred of evidence towards its existence. And what they did is they shift the burden of proof. This man was a scientist. He said the Oort cloud exists. And therefore, you prove him wrong. Remember the example I just gave you about the Webster cloud? I say it's there, you prove me wrong. Well, I can't do that because I can't see it. I can't get out that far, Jan. Critics are still writing papers and arguments concerning this thing, but the fact is they're shifting the burden of proof, saying you've got to prove that it won't happen. Have you ever cut open a watermelon? Everybody here has. What if I say watermelons are blue on the inside until you cut it open? Then it turns red by the oxygenation that happens as the knife goes through. And all these chemical things happen and it turns red. You prove me wrong. You see, folks, science is doing it every day of the week. They're shifting the burden of proof over to the Christians, and they're saying, you prove us wrong, because we're the scientists. We sat down and watched, I forget what channel it was, we were watching that panel of 8 or 9. Oh, well, of course, first they put their stats out there. You know, we got this degree, that degree, and we're the smartest people in all the science, and they said who they were. I said, okay, we're all done with that. You're smart. Anyway, they went on, and they began to talk about the millions of years, and they began to talk about evolution. In 2 sentences, the Christians were called stupid or ignorant 5 times in 2 short sentences, and anybody who does not believe in evolution is a stupid, ignorant person. But people will sit and believe these guys because what they do first, put their credentials on the table. And therefore, people begin to suck into the stuff, and they begin to wonder, is what I believe really true? But David said in the Psalms, the heavens declare the glory of God. The heavens do not declare evolution, they declare the glory of God. Does the Bible match evolution? Inside your books, I think I put this chart in here for you to look at. Let me look at some highlights here. Evolution, my friends, is anti-Christ. Okay? You're going to hear me say that again. It is anti-Christ. Everything about evolution is anti what the Bible says. It's against what the Bible says. The Bible says oceans before earth. They say lands before oceans. The Bible says land plants first. They say marine life first. Fish before insects is what we say. They say insects before fish. We say plants before sun. They say sun before plants. We say birds before reptiles. There are no viruses out here. Go away. Well, not anyway. They say man brought death into the world, or we say man brought death into the world. The Bible teaches us. They say death brought man into the world. Evolution, my friends, is a religion of death. Something must die for the next to step in. It's a religion of death. We say God created man. They say man has created God. And what I told you last week, that we are the gods. As some religions say, if you're not a god now, have no fear. In the life after, you will turn into one. You will obtain that order someday. The Psalm says, when I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers. David knew, as he wrote the Psalms, many of the Psalms, he said, look into the heavens and look at the handiwork of God Almighty. And folks, I've told you before, I'm going to tell you again, do it. Find a dark night and go look at the sky and just worship God. It is the most awe-inspiring experience that you'll ever have. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. He says that he made an interesting verse here. 2 times he uses this word. He says, while I was musing, the fire burned. Musing is a word in the Hebrew that means thinking. David said, I'm thinking. I noticed in the New Testament when the angel came to Mary, what she do? She said she pondered on these things. People in the times of old would think on the things that God has done. And they would, what they call, muse on these things. He said, remember the days of old. I meditate on all the words, and I muse on the work of thy hands. David says it again. I'm thinking on the works of thy hands. Notice he said, I look into the heavens, and notice the handiwork of thy fingers. Here he says, I muse on the work of thy hands. David knew there was a creator that he needed to worship. But anytime we put an A in front of a word, that means in the English language, to not be. A theist is a person who believes in God. I hope everybody in this room fits that. We are theists, we believe in God. An atheist is a person who does not believe in God. Okay? Muse means to think. Amuse means to not think. So you see, we have changed the musing to be an amused people. We are a people of entertainment, are we not? We love to be entertained. When I preached a couple of Wednesday nights ago up in the church, I gave you all an example. I could have a softball party. The whole church would probably show up. Throw some steaks on the grill, we'd probably have visitors. We call for a prayer meeting, And the average across the nation right now says that less than 5%, the numbers are going now as low as some are reporting 1%, will show up for a permit. I think that's something to muse about. I think that's something to think about. But A-Muse, we are an entertaining people. So folks, that's why we have amusement parks. You can go to an amusement park, you can spend your entire life's earning in 24 hours and not think about a thing. And when you come out, you'll be no closer to God than when you went in. We call it amusement. But we are an amused people. David said, when I consider, or the Psalm said, when I consider the heavens, the works of thy fingers. Anybody ever heard of the Pangea theory? Pangea theory. All the continents were connected together at one time. Well, let's take a look at this. We're not going to spend a lot of time here. It's a little bit too ridiculous. Let's say all the continents were connected together at one time, and if you ever look at a globe, people look at it and say, wow, that's kind of neat the way that puzzle works together. Well, what they don't tell you is this, that Africa had to be shrunk 35 to 40% to fit this little puzzle. Africa does not fit the way it sits today. They also don't tell you that Central America and Mexico are completely gone. You got to take them out and put this puzzle together because they don't fit. And oh, by the way, has anybody ever told these people that if you take the water out of that ocean, there's dirt at the bottom? Has anybody told them they're still connected? You see, folks, the water was not there the way it is today, not pre-flood. And we'll get into that later on. I'm not going to jump to that right now. The Pangea theory, the earth being connected, all things being connected together, is an absolute hoax. Okay? It did not happen that way. The earth is spinning at about 1,000 miles of the equator. Again, these are all things that are showing this earth is a young earth. We're not an old earth whatsoever. The earth is spinning at about 1,000 miles down the equator. We're whipping it at a pretty good pace. But the fact is, the earth is also slowing down. The rotation of the earth is slowing down. So they have what they call this time to kill thing. The earth's rotation is slowing down, so they compensate it by adding a second. They call it a leap second in some places, to the clocks to make up so that our seasons kind of stay as close as we can possibly get them. Here's a chart right here that shows you about the times when they did it. 73, 74, all the way up to 96 where the chart goes. And every year they're adding the second. If I'm not mistaken, there's something out of add about a leap second. That this is another year that they're adding a leap second to our clocks to compensate for the slowing down of the earth. Well, remember the moon? It was getting farther away. It was closer together. Well, let's look at this here. If the earth is slowing down, that means at one time it was spinning faster. Well, let's take it back millions of years ago. If the earth was spinning at best and growing faster and faster over the course of millions of years, well, if the dinosaurs didn't get moved to death, they would have got whipped off the earth. The fact is, if the earth was spinning much faster than what it is today, human life could not survive. God made the earth in a perfect atmosphere, rotational basis, and everything we needed to sustain life. There was one study out there that showed that they've somehow gone out into these different areas of the planets and, again, take some with a grain of salt. I don't know how far out they can go. But what they've done is they've looked at the cosmos and the chemicals and the energies and all this other stuff that they can pick up out there. And you know, all the planets in all the universe, they've said that the Earth is the only planet in our entire solar system that we know of right now that can sustain any form of life whatsoever. I found that to be an interesting fact. Not necessarily with the center of the universe, but the fact is we're the only planet that actually can. How many of us have heard of the geologic count? We're going to get into this a little bit deeper later on. How many of you watched the movie Jurassic Park? That gets a nod of all the heads. Jurassic Park, folks, there's the time period right there. Jurassic Park came from a time period called the Jurassic period. Jurassic is when the dinosaurs came into effect. Shortly after that, we have the Cretaceous period, which is when most of the dinosaurs really lived. And of course, then there was a meteor shower that hit the Earth. That sucked all the oxygen out of the Earth, and we don't know what happened to the dinosaurs, but they all went away. And we'll get into that. Anybody who wants to know dinosaurs, don't miss the next 2 episodes. We're going to talk about dinosaurs. And we're going to talk about the possibility of living dinosaurs. Are they really extinct? We're going to look at possibilities and what's really out there. But anyway, this is Jurassic, this is geologic calendar. Now what they say is that each one of these periods right here are millions of years. This is interesting. Here's a tree. You see these trees here embedded in the seams of coal and sandstone as they go up and down. If each one of these seams are representing ages or eras, they say possibly thousands of years, maybe not millions of each one of them. Now, I cut down a tree in my backyard. Now, I found this to be interesting. Cut down the stump down there at the bottom. Now, this happened, I don't know, about five years ago, or maybe longer than that when I cut this tree down. But you know something? That tree ain't there no more. That stump precipitated, rotted, and it's gone. There's nothing there anymore. How many of us are going to believe that tree right there? Let's take this guy over here to the left. He sat in that seam right there with this big branch sitting out there and waiting for thousands of years for that seam to grow and to petrify him. And then the tree waited a few more thousand years and waited for that seed to grow. How many of us, I mean, I'm just thinking about this. I watched a tree in my backyard. It didn't last 1,000 years. Okay? That tree is going to rot and fall away. This phenomena that we see in these coal mines happen very, very quickly. 6,000 years ago, God created the heavens and the earth. 4,400 years ago, there was a flood. And there was a phenomenon called hydrologic sorting, which we'll get into more next week, that caused these seams.
Actual pictures of this.
With petrified tree, the top and the bottom again, different coal seams. I don't know if we hid that slide. We got a picture of one of them upside down trees. We must have hid that. But yeah, well, what he's telling you, we got a slide here somewhere that shows the upside down tree inside of a coal. And they say that, you know, it waited and petrified over. There's no way, folks. Trees do not wait to be petrified. They rot and they fall apart. Okay? Here's Spirit Lake, bottom of Mount St. Helens. We know this lake formed when the volcano happened. Okay? A lot of things flowed down, the lake was formed. If you go to the bottom of this lake, there's thousands upon thousands of trees still all over this lake. In the bottom of this lake, you'll find layers of mud, different sediments at the bottom that the trees are sticking in the mud. This did not happen over the course of millions of years. This happened over the course of a few weeks. And these trees are all completely layered. Here's an ichthyosaur. An ichthyosaur having a baby. How many of y'all have heard fossilization takes millions of years? Fossilization happens very, very quickly. Fossilization needs two elements. A fossil, in this case, an ichthyosaur, mud or something to go over, compress it, and a little bit of heat. And that thing will fossilize within weeks. They've done it in a lab already. You know that if you go onto our website, we got a little thing on there, I think I still got it on the front page, that talks about oil. You know, they talk about oil and the millions of years of oil. You know they now made oil in just a few hours? And they made it out of compressed, we'll call them turkey leftovers. The part of the turkey you don't eat. What they did, they took all the stuff together, they compressed it, they put the heat on top of it, they made oil, folks, in about 20 minutes, if I remember right. I didn't think about that. We ought to write a letter if we all eat more turkey, we can have more oil. The Mississippi River. Fossilization, folks, when you see fossils, you go and look at some of the fossils out here. Some of these are facsimiles, some of them are real fossils. Fossilization, folks, does not take millions of years. This Earth is only about 6,000 years old. Fossilization happens very quick. The Mississippi River, that's home, folks, right there. The Mississippi River dumps about 80,000 tons of mud into that delta every hour. Think about this now. 80,000 tons an hour into there. If we were millions of years old, this is a picture of the delta right now. They calculated the delta going backwards this way here. You know what they came up with? About 6,000 years. Actually, some came up about 4,400 years. I think about one calculator came up about 44, which is interesting. It happened about the time of the flood. Just about the same time. But the fact is, if this was emptying for millions of years, you know, folks, you could walk from Florida to Mexico. There'd be enough mud in the Gulf of Mexico right now. Y'all like to go fishing out there. No, that ain't going to happen. That'd be a big mud hole out there. And you could walk across the Gulf of Mexico. There'd be so much mud. 80,000 tons an hour is being dumped into that thing here. The coral reefs, as we begin to wrap some of this up, the coral reefs of the Great Barrier Reef, they've done a study on this. They watch the coral grow. They say, well, it grows this much at this time here, so therefore let's look at the whole coral reef. And the map guys put the stuff out there. The coral reef, folks, is less than 4,400 years old. I could help them out again. It wasn't there before the flood. It happened during the flood. And folks, don't miss when we talk about the flood. We're going to show you some things that are in the Bible that tell us all about the flood. This earth, as we live on it today, is not what it was back then. Stalactites and stalagmites. They say that they take millions of years. I don't know how many go up into a cave. What's the first thing I tell you? Millions of years ago, these stalactites began to form. Well, is this true? They say that they grow about 2.5 inches every 1,000 years. That, my friends, is a lie. Okay? Here's a picture of some stalactites at the Lincoln Memorial. We know it was built in 1922, and these are the length of some of the stalactites that are growing from the ceiling. Here's a picture of a bat caught in a stalagmite from the floor. Now, they want you to believe that bat fell into the stalactite, into the form down there, sat there, it grew up around them over the course of thousands of years, 2.5 inches every 1,000 years, so the bat waited to be fossilized inside the stalagmite. Now, I got a problem with that, because I got a feeling if you sat there too long, somebody's probably going to buy and eat him. Or, he's going to rot. Okay? When you see a possum killed in the side of the road, have y'all ever seen that possum there 6, 7 weeks from now? He rots, he falls away. Why? He's not been compressed, he doesn't have the heat. He will have fossilized on the side of the road. And that bat ain't going to fossilize inside that stalagmite over the course of thousands of years. The fact is, it grows very, very fast. Here's a boy next to a stalactite and stalagmite growing together in 40 years. Look at the size of that thing. Here's a cave. Look at the size of these stalactites and stalagmites. Here's 2 people down here to give you an idea of how big them things are. This coal mine, we know for a fact, was dug out 55 years ago. We know it for a fact. So we know they're not any older than that. But look how big they are. TP Fountain was created in 1903. They did a little pyramid thing, the line, bucket, spout comes up through the middle of it, and it flows over the side. 1903. This is TP Mountain today. These do not take millions of years. Here's another one here. Is there a little line? Here's another one, a 100-year-old flowstone in a formation in Wyoming. We know for a fact this was started about 100 years ago. Look at the size of it. Right down the road, we have another fountain that was started just a few years later. Look at the size of these things. This millions of years, folks, when you go into a cave and they tell you millions of years, you got to ask the first question, were you there? It's not a fact. They grow very, very fast. It's 2.5 inches every 1,000 years is garbage. It does not happen that way. The erosion rate that we look at nowadays, when we talk about the young Earth, the erosion rate. If the Earth was millions of years old, we know for a fact what the erosion rate is. We've measured the sand at the bottoms of the ocean, we've looked at it, and the erosion rate matches perfectly with the amount of sand that's down there. If we're millions of years old, there would be no hills or mountains. We would have eroded flat, but the fact is we have rocks that are out there that are 300 times older, is what they say. Where did they come from? It's impossible. The erosion rate itself says this Earth is only about 6,000 years old. Writing systems were developed only about 5,000 years ago. If man is 3.4 million years old, why do we not have any writing from them? Did they not talk? Did they not write? Did they not communicate at all? What did they do for millions of years? The oldest writings we can find are only about 5,000 years old. The Chinese calendar dates about 4,700 years old in their calendar. Our year 2000 would be their 4,700. Well, maybe they started their calendar with the birth of Noah. Or within a couple hundred years right there, maybe they started it right there at the flood. I can accept, a 200-year difference I can accept. Millions of years I can't. Okay? Let's look at the Hebrew calendar. The year 2000 in the Hebrew calendar was 5,760 years old. The year 5,760. I'll tell you something, folks, the way Hebrews keep track of time, generations, and their genealogy of the people and the families, I'll trust them before I trust an American scientist. We'll show you when we get into dinosaurs, I'll show you some of the things that the pygmies say about our American dinosaurs. Really interesting. But why are the oldest reliable historical records that we can find only about 6,000 years old? All these things we look at space, the erosion contents, everything we look inside the sea, the great Australian barrier reef. Why does everything point to a very, very young Earth? Comets in space, why are these things pointing? And yet they want you to believe that we are millions of years old, when all the evidence says that's absolutely not true. Why aren't students shown the truth about the young universe? But they're not. They only want to believe millions of years. Dr. Seuss starts your kids out young, young, young. Watch the new grandchild, Dr. Seuss. Don't do no dinosaur books. I like the one picture we got of the dinosaur, the grandpa dinosaur sitting with the baby dinosaur. They're opening up the Bible. We're going to learn about dinosaurs inside the Bible. It's a neat little picture. But science books are talking about all this stuff here. You know, folks, our Declaration of Independence in America, at one time still says that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator. In one sentence, back in our original founders, they knew that you were created, and that we were created by a Creator. They recognized God, the same God that we've kicked out of the schools and brought evolution, and the same God that many people don't want to have anything to do with today. And we wonder why our world is the way it is. It's because we kicked God out. Revelation chapter 3, the church of Laodicea, Jesus is knocking at the door saying, "Can I come in?" Because it's been kicked out. This is a staggering figure, folks. If nothing else staggers you, this figure should. 3 out of 4 children raised in a Christian home will leave their faith by the first year of college. Folks, think about that. Let's bring that home. 3 out of 4 children at First Assembly of God, Columbus, Mississippi, if the stats hold true in our church, will leave their faith by the first year of college. They polled the kids that left their faith. Evolution made them doubt their mind. Evolution, folks, is dangerous. It's not just a philosophy, it's not just a science, it is dangerous. And public schools are the institutions being used. Be very, very careful of them. The Bible intends to teach a plain 6-day creation. The Bible, and what this man said here was the Bible was simply in error at that point. If you want to know what it was, I'll share it with you personally. I simply said leading denomination today. I've taken the name of the denomination off the slide so that I don't offend people in what it is. But this was a national conference of one of the most leading denominations in our nation today. And he said the Bible is in error at that point. What are the people going to believe if the leaders are teaching this inside the church? Let's go back. Let me tell you a story. Let's do this real quick. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, a man left home jogging. He jogged a little ways and he turned left. He jogged a little ways and he turned left. He jogged a little ways and then he ran back home. He was jogging back home. He noticed 2 masked men waiting for him at home. Who were the masked men? And why did the man leave home jogging? Anyone have any idea? If you've been to a seminar before, you're not allowed to answer. Okay, hold your thought, Bill. Nobody else. Well, let me tell you the story one more time. A man left home jogging. He jogged a little ways, he turned left. He jogged a little ways, he turned left. He jogged a little ways, he turned left, and then he ran back home. As he was jogging back home, he noticed 2 masked men waiting for him at home. Who were the masked men, and why did this man leave home jogging?
He was a catcher, the masked man was a catcher, and the guy was a baseball player.
If I give you all the facts, you can understand. You have just been brainwashed. With a simple story, I made you lead me in. How many here, be honest now, had a picture of somebody leaving their house and running around the block, coming back home, and maybe 2 robbers sitting there waiting for a masked man, waiting for him at home? That's where I wanted to lead you to believe. But I didn't give you all the facts because I wanted to lead you into where I was. It's called brainwashing. And you have been brainwashed. We show you all the pictures so that you can go to church and have a good time, and we unbrainwash you too. But this is what's happening in our school. They're giving you what they want you to believe. They're taking small minds and saying, this is where we're going to lead you into. And by the time they get to college, folks, they don't even question anymore. It's not even a question fact anymore of what they're doing. The kids are taught, I can read about dinosaurs. They're taught about millions of years ago, and here's a picture of Dr. Seuss. Folks, at small ages, they're being taught millions and millions of years ago, dinosaurs existed. The fact is, if y'all get a chance to look in the back of my van, got a big picture in the back of my van, dinosaurs have always lived with man. Dinosaurs are not millions of years old. Dinosaurs are only about 6,000 years old. They were created on day 6 of the creation. The creatures and the beasts of the field. I think probably if they looked up and saw one of them things, I would call it a creature or a beast. But I think they were one of the most majestic animals God ever created too. Can you imagine? I was walking through a forest one time, or hiking through the woods. I thought, wouldn't it be something to turn around a rock or turn around a wood somewhere and you see a 20-ton stegosaurus looking at me? Now, can you imagine? Looking up over the trees and seeing a head. Over. No, that would have been absolutely amazing. But God said in the beginning, folks, He created a man and a female. God said in the beginning, He laid the foundations of the earth. Beware lest any man spoil you, Colossians said, through the vain teachings of men, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Evolution is a tradition of men. It is a deceitful, poisoning doctrine that has corrupted our world. I had a talk with a girl. I think we were set up at Shout Fest, that we were doing some teaching over there with some people. A girl came up to me and she says, "It's interesting you say that." She says, "God gave me my testimony." I said, "Absolutely, I love that. I'd love to hear it." She says, "Do you know that I went to Mississippi State?" She says, "By the end of my first year of college," she says, "I was raised in the church. In fact, I wanted to go into missionary work and go into the workings of Christ and do what He wanted me to do. By the end of my first year of college, I denied the Bible as it is written." And she says, "I'm going to tell you what did it. Evolution. The evolution made me question everything in the Bible." She says, "If I could question Genesis, then I had to raise questions about the rest of the Bible. Because if that's not true, is anything else true?" Children are being affected, folks. The Bible says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.